Okay, good day everyone. Kindly confirm you can see my screen.
Yes, your screen is visible and you're very audible. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you. So without wasting much of our time, I hope we had a wonderful weekend. So welcome back to Poshem Technology, still on the DP 300, which is administering relational database within the Azure platform. So we are looking at the other lesson within our module 2 and looking at how to evaluate strategies for migrating our databases to Azure SQL Server. That is what we'll be focusing on. And in the course of today's class, we will be doing some hands-on, and there are some tools we will be looking at. So for the data migration assistant, we'll be using that for our hands-on lab. For the database experimentation assistance, I'm going to talk about it, but we are not going to do a hands-on on it because it's beyond the scope of this class, but I'm just going to shed more light on how to, and we'll also look at Azure Migrate and the database migration services. Okay, so that's just some of what we'll be looking at today. But before we jump into what we have, I don't know if there's any questions regarding what we did last class, because we're actually looking at the different, we've looked at Azure VM, installing SQL Server on it. We looked at the Azure SQL database, and we looked at the Azure SQL managed instance. So today, so let me give room for any question or feedback regarding that. Is there any question, any feedback?
No question.
Okay. So without that, without any question, I think let's just dive into what we have today. So basically, for the objective, that is what we are seeing, touch base on SQL Server compatibility level. We'll talk about Microsoft support policy. There's what they call, is it end of life support and stuff like that. So we get to know the difference between the private and the public review, and what are the various options when you want to perform a migration. Okay, so when we talk about the compatibility level, okay, it's actually a database thing. Database, depending on how you, or let me put it this way. When you talk about the compatibility level, let me bring up my SSMS. Now, okay, let's quickly dive into, let me see if I can recall this at the SQL Server. SQL Server. I'll do addition and I'll do version. There's a particular link I'm looking for. I hope think SQL was this. Okay. Still one of the so basically, if we looked at, we have the different SQL version. So now when we talk about this compatibility level that we're talking about, so like I said, it is actually a database level setting. Okay, and currently when you talk about the SQL Server, I think I'm actually using the 2019 version. I think that is one of the things I wanted to show. They have this different version. You have the 15, you have the 14, you have the top of my head, I've forgotten. There's one particular link. I cannot, I think my network is. Okay, let me see if I can get this link. Yeah, maybe it will take me to that particular place I want to. There's not this guy. Okay, yeah. This is actually the link I want. SQL. Okay, I think I can use this SQL Shark. SQL. SQL Server. Okay, not how to find. I think this should give me what I want. Okay, we'll get there when I get what I want to. So, but basically coming back, let me just use this. Now, so when we talk about the currently in terms of SQL Server 2019 and Azure services, there's actually this compatibility level from 100 to 150, which is from 2008 to 2019. I think we should get that even from Microsoft. Don't let me overthink this one. Don't let me overthink this. Yeah. So there is for the particular version, there is a way Microsoft has actually structured the whole thing. Come on. Okay, good. This is exactly what I want to showcase. This is this okay, this one. This is exactly what I want to showcase. If you come down here, let me bring this one down. Let me just take this away. Let me cancel this. So this is basically what I actually want to showcase. Let me just take this. Yes. So if you look at it, version 15.0, whatever, is the 2019 version 14. So when you talk about compatibility level, coming back to what we are showing us on the slide, okay, you discover that there's support for this currently, but when we talk about the support, we get some are actually out of support scope, okay? But in terms of the Azure services, there's always this compatibility level. So depending on whichever of this particular version you have used in creating your SQL database, you know, from 10, which is 100, okay, up to this 15, there's still support for it. And one thing you should always understand is that the reason why the compatibility level comes into play is that this third point, you know, when you talk about the query optimizer behavior and probably some of the state transacts syntax, okay, there needs to be a kind of collaboration between those older versions that we have seen. Okay, so if there is no compatibility level, that means any database that have been created using the old database engine, probably the 2008, and you are trying to migrate them to the current, maybe 2019 and even 2022, there will be some pending issues. So that's the reason why there's this room, or while there's this, you know, support for that compatibility level, okay? And one thing you should understand is we said it is a database level stuff. So this last point is making us understand that the effects of that behavior is on the database, not on the server, the server as a whole. Okay. Now, when you talk about in terms of support for SQL Server, just like if we look at it, I think even I know I read something recently about Windows 10 reaching maybe end of life support. I can't say exactly when, okay, but we know that Windows 7, Windows XP, those ones, they are no longer in support. So something similar to that, even the SQL Server, they have their support model, okay, and this is the way it works, you know. For SQL Server, they are always released in primary, you know, when they're in their primary support, that means there's support for them for 5 years. And when we talk about this support, you talk about the performance, the security, the functionality update, cumulative update, and stuff like that, okay? And when you now talk about extended support, that means when they are still released, when they are in their primary, you know, there's always this constant support. And even after maybe a newer version has been released, okay, there's this what they call this extended support for additional 5 years. Okay, I think we'll get a clearer picture when we move to the next slide. Okay, so now, like if you remember the first two slides, we'll talk about the current SQL Server that are being supported. So these are the current ones that are being supported. Okay, so now for this and this, that means 2014 to 2017, they are currently experiencing, and I think even some of this might have they are currently experiencing what is called extended support. Because if you look at this, after they get up to 5 years. So they'll still be getting security fixes, up to 5 years. Okay. So currently, these are like, we like to say the green version. All this one now, they are just currently enjoying extended support. And I stand to be corrected. Let's just confirm if 2014 is still being supported. SQL Server 2014, end of life. Okay, let's see Microsoft. So let's just get data straight. Okay, they said the end of life support date for Microsoft. Okay, can you see this has reached the end of life July, which is about how many months ago? Okay, so I think the next one is, let's look at that 2016, just to confirm. So meaning any organization that is currently, okay, good. So this is it. So for this one, you still have a long way to go. For this one, there's still a long way to go. Even for this one, I think in the next 2 years. But this one is out of, even the extended support, the mainstream support. So this one's actually a goner. So this is just basically in terms of the support. Please, if there is any question, let's just ask. Okay. Now, when we talk about compatibility level based certification for application, simply what we are saying is that, depending on the application that is talking to those database, okay, it's also the compatibility level 2 also matters. Okay. The compatibility levels 2 also is another thing we need to take into consideration. So when you talk about application for, that are using maybe SQL Server 2019, or they are using Azure SQL database, those applications should not, in terms of satisfying, they can work. That means they are good to go. Okay. And when you also talk about maybe Azure PaaS services, this is something that should keep ringing a bell to us, that when you are talking about any of the Azure PaaS services, there's no need for you to update. There's no need for you to, for you to update, for you to upgrade, because you are always using the evergreen. That is, you're always using the latest version of it. So when you talk about the Azure SQL Managed Instance, when you talk about the Azure SQL database, okay, those fall under the PaaS services, and you can always be rest assured that they are always up to date. You are making use of the latest version when it comes to this particular database when you are using them. Okay. And when we talk about Azure Preview, okay, let's see if I can come to this place. Let me go here. There's always this what they call the private and the public preview. So like this now, okay, this is in preview. This particular one is still in preview. Okay, so when we talk about private preview, your private preview has to do with, depending on the kind of your subscription, is like you have to reach out to Microsoft for them to add you to this particular, for you to get information regarding any kind of preview that is in terms of services within the Azure environment anyway. But when you talk about a public preview, like what I've just shown us now, is an example of a public preview. So this one is available to every end user, but there's actually a way you can, sign up for you to get access to that particular private preview. So it's like you need to be allowed, or you need to reach out for your subscription to be added to that particular private preview. Okay. And when you talk about some things you need to understand about preview, I think one of the, even let me just put it, I think one of the things you should understand is it is not always advisable to use any of this preview feature in production. At least if I don't know of anyone, that one I know. Okay. And one other thing you also need to understand is that some of this preview, they are region specific in the sense that there are some of this preview you might be seeing in a particular region that is not available in some other region. Okay, so that's the concept of the preview being region specific. And one thing is that since the fact that they are still, the preview is like they are trying to get end users feedback on it, and so those preview features, they are often at discounted price, because it's still like, okay, we are still trying to get feedback want to know people's opinion about it. So the amount you are paying at that point in time is more at a discounted price. Okay. And one other thing is that some of them may not have full GUI support, okay, because it's still, let me just use the word, more like work in progress. So, and just like I said earlier, that most of this preview feature is not always advisable for you to use them in a production environment, because when there's any incident or any whatever issue, okay, because it is still in preview, so you might not really get the full-fledged support you want, okay. And one thing is different support policy. That's just what I've just said now. There's different, the support policy differ from when you talk about the features that are generally available. That's the concept of GA. Okay, so if we come back to Azure portals, all these other ones, they are, they are GA, they are generally available. And I think there's actually, at the top of my head, I cannot remember, but there's Microsoft. Let me see if I can pick down latest information. That's not the right, okay, but let's see if I can get it. Information on Azure, let me see, on Azure services and features. Let's see if I can, and features. I want to see if I've forgotten the exact name, but there's, they show you more like a roadmap. It shows you a roadmap. Okay, let's see if it is Azure updates. Okay, good. I think that's it. Yeah. This is it. So it gives you a roadmap of what is coming. It gives you a roadmap of, so let's just say in terms of, let's see if we can get something on SQL server. Let's just say SQL. Let's see if that will work. Let me use it all caps. This is just, I'm just trying to see if, okay. Okay, let's see. Okay. Okay, so let's just see. So right now you have this total in development, the ones that have been launched. Okay, so you can just go around with this and just check, but this will always give you an update on, get the latest update on Azure product and feature based on your cloud. It gives you a kind of, insight into. Now, if you look at this particular one, for example, advanced container networking, it becomes generally available GA November 2024. So some are still in preview. So if you look at this one, it's still in preview. And I think it started the preview in November 2024. So that's just another way for you to know which services. So maybe there's something you're actually looking forward to and stuff like that. Now, when you talk about migrating to Azure, okay, when you talk about migrating to Azure, okay, there are different tools you can use depending on what you want to migrate. Now, when you talk about the IaaS migration, we've talked about the fact that why some organizations prefer having an SQL server installed within an Azure VM. We talked about that when we were looking at the different platform available, the different type of SQL database and server available within the Azure Echo Center or Echo Space, as the case may be, and definitely when you're talking about lift and shift, we've talked about the fact that it is your infrastructure as a service that comes into place, because you probably want to have access to the operating system, or probably maybe the application you are using have a specific operating system they can easily work with, or that has been integrated with it. So then you talk about lift and shift in that particular case. And when we talk about Azure Migrate, okay, Azure Migrate is actually one of the tools that you can use for migration. And it is not just for databases alone. Okay, let me just quickly show us a clear picture of that. Let me duplicate this. Then I'll go to Azure Migrate. So I'll just walk us, we'll still go into details of this. I just want to show us how the interface look like. So if you look at this, when you want to migrate, maybe you have your SQL server within your virtual machine, and you want to migrate all those workload and the data to VM that are running in Azure, you can use your Azure Migrate, okay? And one good thing about the Azure Migrate is it does not just do the migration, you can also use it to do assessment in terms of discover your environment and every other thing that is needed for the proper migration. So if you come to this place under this Azure Migrate, okay, you want to migrate servers, databases, and web app, you can use the Azure Migrate. You want to migrate databases alone, you can do that. You want to migrate web app alone, you can do that. And when you talk about the data box is actually when you have large, database, or maybe data that are so large that it might take maybe days or even weeks for you to copy. So, reach out to the Microsoft guys, they send, let me just, I think it will be better if I could just show us maybe a picture of, what's that called? Azure Data Box. Okay, so let's just see Azure Data Box. So we'll just have, let me just go to the image. Okay, good. So you can see what I'm actually talking about. So you bring this to the on-prem, then you plug, do the connection. Once the data has been copied over, then they take it to one of their data centers, and they quickly transfer it, and your data is actually residing in the cloud, as the case may be. So now we are okay. This will work with this. So for the benefit of this class, what I've just done earlier is this: I've actually provisioned an SQL server and a database. The database is empty. So this is the database. So if I go back to overview and I come to, okay, this is the, okay, let me go to the server. So the server is actually Poshem server. And if I come to database, you discover that I created one, but this is an empty database. Just to confirm that, I can connect to this, and let us see. Okay, my SSMS, but let's use the Azure Data Studio, but we will be using, okay, whichever one come readily. But let me just use the Azure Data Studio to connect to this first. Okay, let me just get let me get the server name. So let's connect to that SQL server. This is the server name. I'm sure this is something we are used to by now. Encryption, let me make it optional. No, sorry. Okay, let me make that one optional. This come out. Okay. Okay, I think I use SQL login, admin user. Hope I'm right with that. Okay, what else? I think we are good to go. Let's see. The default database, if it should pick, I only have what's the name of that one. So let's see if it will pick it up. Even without picking it up, we can still connect, but let's just see. Okay, let's just connect. So if we check what we have here, under under the server, this is the database we have. So we want to confirm if it is empty or not. So it's still connecting. So let's give it, okay, good. I think it's connected. So let me close out on all these other queries. Let me close out on this one. Okay, this is the one. Let me close out on this one. And save. And save. And save. So if we look at this, we have this. This is the database. But you will discover that we don't have any table. It's empty. So if I come here, okay, you see that this is empty. Okay, this table is empty. Okay, so let's move on. So now the essence of creating this is we want to, we are going to look at how to, one of the tools you use when you talk about migrating your database from your on-prem to your cloud environment. And it's not just limited to on-prem to cloud alone, okay? And is this database migration assistant, and it does more than just migration. Okay, it has this feature to be able to, access your environment when you want to move from either on-prem, to maybe an SQL server within an Azure virtual machine, or to any of the PaaS services, probably SQL server, Azure SQL managed instance, or Azure SQL database. Okay. And, while it is assessing that your environment, we are going to do that. We are going to just do that. But these are some of the functionalities. Okay. And one other thing is, in terms of it also has the ability to also access your T-Transfer code in your application if there will be any breakage. Okay. And, and also migrate database, to VM, to Azure, just like what I've said, depending on. So I think instead of just going through this slide, let's make it much more, meaningful. So when you talk about, like I have mentioned, we have different migration services. So the first thing we are going to do is this. So if I come here, let's see. So we have it here. Okay. So now, let me bring up. Okay. Do I have? Okay. Okay. Good. Let me see for my. Let's assume we want to. Let's assume we want to migrate this particular database, to what we have on-prem. Okay. Now, there are two ways of doing it. There's an easier way and there's another better way. Let me put it that way. So I'll just show us this, but I won't finish that one. So you have this one, you right click on it, you go to task, and what do you want to do? You can just say, let's look for the one with deploy to Azure database, which is an SQL. Okay, so let's click on this. Okay, so let's do the two methods by which we can. Let me minimize this. Okay, good. So let's click on this. I think I'll have to create another, since we'll be using this one. Okay, let me go back to the server. What did we call the first one? We call that one DB. Okay, so let me just copy this one. I want to create another one. So we'll just use the two approach. We'll use the two approach. Let me say SQL Server. So I'll just put O2 on this other new one. So while we are busy, so we'll just use the same server, but we have two different databases, a single database, but they are both empty. So this is how I created that other one, which I know we're already familiar. Still the same resource group. What's the database name for this one? Oops. I copy, okay, O2, yeah. Development here, we are not doing anything. I'll put it locally. I'm not doing anything. So connect my current IP, yes, allow, yes. Okay, let's go to security. We don't need anything. So under this is none, so there's no database there. So let's just click on that. So while this one is busy creating, let's just confirm it's in that creation state. So we'll use this database for the other one that we are going to use the data migration assistance to deploy. So this other one will just be the normal way we want to, move that database to the cloud. So once this is still validating, okay, let's give it some couple more minutes. Okay, good. I think it's so. Let's come back to this. So for this one now, what's the server name? So we'll come back here. Okay, let me get my server name from this one. This is my server name. Let's check something. Okay, I didn't give it. Where's the server name? Okay. So let's come back here. So server connection, let me put this one here. Okay, connect. Okay. I know use this. Okay, oh my bad. Specify the connection of the instance of this or okay that will host the deployed. Okay. User. Okay. I've taken care of the what's that called in terms of the firewall, so we should not have any issue. Okay, so it's able to pick, so you might want to change all this or whatsoever. So this is the temporary file that is being used, so let's move on. Okay, let me see if I can. Okay, maybe what I'll do is I'll just, once it goes, I'll come back and change this one. So we'll just add, let me go back to the previous. So I'll just say this one is direct. Let me use that word, direct. Okay. So let's allow this one to do its thing. Okay, we'll come back and check on it. Okay, but remember that we've created, if I come back here and refresh this, we should have to, good. So this is the one we are using currently with this one that we are, we are migrating it directly from the SSMS. Okay, and remember I told you that you have different ways by which you can actually migrate. Okay, so this is one way. And when you talk about migrating, you can migrate to your Azure SQL, you can migrate to your SQL managed instance, you can even migrate to an Azure VM that is hosting an SQL server. Okay, so let's assume that now what you want to do is you want to migrate to Azure SQL database, which is just what we have started. Okay, so now, and these are some of the benefits in terms of backup and recovery. Talk about high availability, talk about disaster recovery. These are some of the points we have actually visited in some of our previous classes. Okay, in terms of high availability. Now remember that when I was creating the database, there was a place that talked about geo-replication, but I decided to choose local. So those are some of the high availability. And when you talk about security, you might want people to log into the database using the Microsoft Intra ID, okay, which is another level of security within the Azure space, okay. And when you talk about licensing, we've actually talked about the fact that you can even get up to 49% discount when it comes to your cost, based on the fact that you're using what they call the concept of bring BYOL, bring your own license. Probably you have the license for the on-prem server, you can still apply that to Azure, okay, and you get that discount involved. And when you talk about disaster recovery, it's somehow synonymous with this, based on the different maybe region or availability zone, or the way you have decided to set up your environment. That will go a long way too, and even for the backup, you can use your Azure storage, all your backups. And by default, the PaaS platform, they take an automatic backup, transactional backup. One is daily, one is every 12 hours and stuff like that. So some of these things are the normal duty that a database admin is supposed to do, but by default they do that for you. Okay, so let's check if let's check our SSMS. Okay, I think green. Let's see. Okay, we still have just two more. So so all what we need to do is, let's allow it, then we'll come back and we'll check. So while we are waiting, let's go on with our slide. So now they are okay, good. So these are the tools like I made mention. Now, one thing you need to understand is this. Now, this is the one we are going to use next. So what I'm just doing is just showing you how you can migrate a database from your on-prem, okay, directly. Okay, but this one, remember that this data migration assistant is a standalone application. And let me just bring it up once and for all. database migration assistant. I thought it came up. It's okay, let me do this. No, not this one. Not the experimental. Where are the database? I hope I'm getting it right. Yeah. Okay, let me just double check again. Okay, data as migration. Okay, I think that's what I was getting wrong. Data migration. Yeah, because I know. Okay, let me just bring it up. So this is now the one we are going to use. So we'll talk about this other two. But let's just confirm that this has been done. Okay, I think these two are still going. And one thing is, depending on the size of your database, that will determine how long this will take. So while we are still waiting for this, let's just move on because of times that we'll be able to start that other one too. So now let's just quickly, let's touch briefly on this. So these are the tools. Now for this Azure Data Migration Service, this one is when you have a large workload in terms of database that you want to migrate. That is when you use this one. Okay, this one too can do it. Okay, but some of these tools are better suitable for different jobs. Okay, and when you talk about the database experimentation assistant, it's actually not a migration tool per se. Okay, but it's actually used for, you want to maybe move, it gives you a clearer picture how your workload will play when you are moving it. Let's say from maybe you have an SQL Server of 2012 and you want to migrate to maybe SQL Server of 2019, okay? Or probably you are currently using maybe a particular kind of server or, hardware, and you are getting a different hardware, how your workload will perform on that new hardware. So you can use that database, you can use the database experimental assistant to get, a feel. It gives you, it helps you to analyze how your, database will work on those different use cases that I've just mentioned. Okay, so let's take them one after the other. So let's see if this is done, then we can just start with. Okay, I think everything is success. So let's see. I think we are good to go. So everything is complete. So let's close out on this. So if we go back to this is the one we use. Okay, we can equally connect. I think we connected to it. We can also connect to it here. Let me see. Admin user. Okay, let's connect so that we have it here instead of. So let's wait for it to be connected. So while we are waiting, any question from anyone? Connection was successful, but an error occurred during the login process. An existing connection was forcefully closed by this. Okay, better still. I think we have this and we've connected with this one. So let me refresh this. This is the same stuff we connected to. So let's come here. Okay, so if you okay, good. This is the one we just, so you can see the name. This was not here before, Adventure Walk LT Direct. So we now have it. So if you go here and let's try and see if we can compare. Actually, this is it. We don't need to compare, but just for, let me just bring that one up. Let me open this one first. Okay, let me cancel this one. If you want to, the table, we just needed just some few tables just to confirm Azure Data Studio. So if you look at the first one, DBO build version, error. So that's the confirmation that we have migrated that to the cloud. Okay, so now using so if you look at from PowerPoint, they said when you're using the data, okay, this is giving us, I've actually talked about the data migration assistant. Okay, basically in terms of you want to upgrade to modern data platform, you know, you want to move, you know, so that's why you have the sources and you have the supported target. So if you are using any of this version, maybe SQL Server 2005 up to SQL Server 2017 on Windows, okay, you can migrate from any of these to this particular one. You know, talk about SQL Server 2012, 2014, 2016, you know, 2017 on both Linux and you can also migrate them to. So what we did was we migrated, the one we are actually using was a database on SQL Server 2019, and we migrated it to Azure SQL database. Okay, so now let's use this data migration. Let's see how it works, you know, all this configuration. Let's just have a feel of it. So the first thing I did was to bring up, this is the data migration assistant, and you have different version. So the first thing, like I said, that you can use it for assessment. So what I'm going to do is I will just start with a quick assessment. Okay, then after the assessment, we do the migration. So let's say Poshem DB assessment. Okay, what kind of assessment? Of course, is a database engine. What's the source? An SQL Server, just like what we did. So I'm creating this. Great. So what is going to these are the reports, so you can check and uncheck, but let's just leave for these two. You know, in terms of the database compatibility, in terms of feature parity, maybe they are undiscovered, they are unsupported or partially supported features and functions within, you know, applications that are relying on this database. So let's just click on next. And the good thing about this is that you can always, you know, save this assessment, or you can even move this assessment to, how will I put it? You can connect it to, you can share it with your Azure Migrate, you know. So when we talk about the server name, so let me just pick that one. I can use my local host, but let me just do connect database engine. Come here, this is it. So let me copy this. So this is server name. Okay, so I'm using window authentication, so it should be able to pick up my. So it's now asking me which one do I want to work with. We'll work with this one. So let's work with this one, 2017. Okay, and let's just click on add. So it has added that. So if you want to add other database, this is just click. If you feel you've added more than sufficient, you can, you know, remove this. So let's start the assessment. So basically good. So now it's telling us these are some of the unsupported feature, SQL Server agent job. Okay. Now one thing you should understand, we'll still talk about for 2019. You know, there's no when you talk about SQL jobs, you have what they call elastic jobs. Okay, so all these ones, these are some of the whatever that is actually saying it cannot find, and it's actually giving in terms of, you know, this is just the assessment. So now remember I told you that you can upload this to Azure Migrate, but we've not created any project on Azure Migrate, and Azure Migrate is actually different, but I'll just show us a brief overview on how to do that, but we are not going to do that. So if we don't want to upload it directly, we can save it, and even while later on we can still, you know, so let's just save this one. So I'll call this one Poshem. Let me see. Okay, I think I can put it here. Yeah, let me save it here. Okay, so let me go back. So instead of assessment now, I want to do migration. So I'll just give it that same name, Poshem DB migration. Still the same thing. So what do you want to migrate? The schema and the data. Okay, you can migrate schema alone, but let's stick with the schema and the data. So let's click on create. So now connect to the source server. Okay. Now the source server automatically is what we have here. So I'll still pick this one. Okay, let me leave that one out. Okay, so this is the source server. So let's connect and see. So it's asking me which one do I want to. So if you look at this, so this was the one. So let's work with this one. We've worked with this one. So what's the next thing we'll do? Select the target. Okay, what's the server name? So I'll come to, this is the server name. Remember that for the, okay, good. It automatically brought us that we use SQL Server authentication. So I'll input my password here. Okay. So what else? So let's connect so that we can. Now remember, this was the first one we actually created this one. We didn't use it. So I think this was, so let's go with this one. Let's go with this one. So we want it to, so we click on next. So just look at what we are doing. It has done the first one. We're on the second one. So once this one is confirmed, which is now he has checked it. So we are going to the third one, which is the select objects. Okay. So these are the different objects in terms of the schema, the store procedure, you know. So in case you want to remove anyone, all you need to do is what, uncheck, or by default, we'll just go on. So if you want to, this generates scripts. It's like if you want to do it using scripts, so it gives you the scripts, you know, it's just like for you to see maybe what's actually happening behind the scene. Or next time you want to run a script to, you know, do the same thing. Okay, so it's actually generating that script for us. And if you see, we're actually on stage 4 now. Okay, so you can actually deploy the schema, you know, save, copy. So let's just say deploy this script that it has generated. So just watch here now, it will keep reading some. So it's doing the schema migration in process. So 1 of 1. So what it is going to do is out of this total, okay, is, so we'll just let this one run and we'll come back. And one thing you should have at the back of your mind that depending on the size of your database, you know, it could take, you know, some couple of minutes. So this one is telling you that it's deploying as at now, it has deployed. This is the count 50 out of 2,239, you know, so let's just leave that. So let me give room for question. Any questions so far? Any questions so far?
No questions, sir.
I'll take a silence as a no.
No questions.
Okay.
No questions, sir.
So
Can you hear
basically,
me?
this is what we are doing. So these are the different steps.
I was speaking. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear, loud and clear.
Okay, I said no
Okay,
question.
yes, I can hear you now.
Yeah.
I guess you are speaking muted. Okay.
Oh,
Thank
yeah.
you for the feedback. So
Yeah.
basically, this is just a graphical representation of what we are doing. You know, we've done the assessment. Okay. Now it has actually, we've done the where to prepare the whatsoever it will do, and it has given us the script which is now using to deploy. So it will now do a copy of that, you know, copy it, and you know, that's the stage we are now currently. If you look at this particular one, okay. So it's still, we still have a long way to go. So we'll just let this one run. So maybe before the end of the class, we might be able to. If not, I think I'll just do a screenshot and probably share, but let's just leave it and we'll move on. Okay. So I think we are good with the data. So this is, if you can see it, we've done this one, we've gone beyond this. Okay. When you talk about this database experimentation assistant, okay, now you'll just simply call it the DA. Okay, what it does, it is enables, when you talk about A/B testing between the source and the target system to evaluate a targets. That's a mouthful. Okay. Basically, let me bring this whiteboard up and just give us a clearer picture. Okay, let me go for this one. Let me say this is your DEA. Let's say this is your source. This is your server A. This is your server B. Okay. Now, this is what happened. You can install this as a standalone, maybe on a different server, depending on how you want it. But one thing is, it was not always advisable to install it on your production, and there are some basic requirements for this. And I think one of the basic requirements is, I think you must have what's this? Is it .NET 4.8, if I am right? Okay, let's do it this way. That means requirements. If I can spell requirements for database migration experimentation assistant. Let me say requirement for Microsoft. Let me make it much easier that way. Okay, so these are some of our good. This is one of the requirements. .NET Framework 4.5, 64 operating system, Windows 10, these are some of the whatsoever you can. So we'll just keep it simple for the purpose of this class. So let's check the progress of this one. We still have a long way to go. So I think we can proceed. So, so for this one, okay, I think I was explaining some stuff. So for this one, like I said, this one, you can install it on a standalone server. Okay, and we've seen some of the requirements in terms of the .NET, the kind of servers you can install it on. Okay, so now one thing is, this is your source. It could be your production server. Okay, but you make sure that this your source and this server A, they have the same configuration. Okay, now remember I said something earlier. They have the same configuration. You have the same SQL Server edition installed. Okay, so you configure it this way, the same way you have this configuration, you configure this one. So why this server B now? Okay, because the essence of this your database experimentation assistant, the major purpose is, let's assume these are the three things it can do for you: capture workload, replay the workload, then analyze, which is the most important thing. It view the results so that your workload performance comparison can be made between the source and the target workload. Okay, probably you want to migrate from 2012 to 2017 SQL Server, or 2019 SQL Server. Okay, or probably you are using your SQL 2017 on a specific kind of hardware, and your organization, they got a different hardware, and you still want to run that 2017 SQL Server on it. Okay, so now how will it impact the performance of your workload? Okay, so that is what this your database experimentation assistant will do for you. And for you to do it, that is why I've given us this simple diagram. Okay, these are what you need to put in place. So you must have your source server, then you have this, so on this one now, you run that, there's what they call a trace. So let me bring it up. Okay, this is it, but we'll not be able to do much here because I don't have that on-prem setup. I'll just give us, and for this, I think Microsoft is trying to even, if you come here, let me see if I can move it, because I mean, this is supposed to be three things: the replay, the trace. I don't know how they did it in such a way that it kind of goes beyond. Okay, good. So it's giving me good. So let me just keep this one here. Now I want to show something. I don't need you. I want to quickly show something, because I think this particular tool is actually going to be, I think, let's see, database experimentation assistant. I know Microsoft is going to scrap it off very soon, so I don't know why. Okay, so if you look at this, is even this year, this tool will be retired on December 15 to 2024. We will no longer support this tool for any issue that may arise and will not issue any bug fixes anymore. Okay, but basically, just like I told you, you use it to, okay, good. So this is even giving us a better pictorial representation. So if you look at, you have the source, okay, but let's come back here. So on this particular one, okay, so what you do, you want to capture that workload on your source, which is maybe like your production server. When you capture, of course, you run some traces. If I bring this one up again, I'll just show us this, okay? Under this capture, if you click on capture, just for us to have a feel of the interface, what's the capture name? What kind of, is it the event or trace, okay? How long do you want it? You know, but the ideal time is between 30 to 40 minutes, okay? So now, where do you want to store the trace that is being captured? Where do you want to store it? And one thing you need to understand is that, you know, remember I said is on the source. So for this one, you have to take a backup. So it is that backup now you will restore on this target A. Because remember, I told you that this A and this source, they must have similar configuration. Now, the essence of doing it is, if this is your source, A is your production, you don't want anything to happen that will impact the production, okay? But you want to run the trace on this one. The backup, you take it. That's why it's showing you, yes, I'm manually taking the backup of the target database, which is your source, okay? So you will now restore that backup on this, that workload capture, okay, you will replay it on this. Now, this source B or this other server B, the server B is basically that changes you want to make to this one. Remember, I said something earlier. Let's say maybe on this particular one and this source, you are running SQL Server 2012, and you want to probably move on to 2017 SQL Server. You want to know how will the performance of that workload be impacted, or probably the organization for this particular one, they were using a specific kind of hardware and they have gotten another hardware, okay, which they want to move on. So how will it impact the performance, you know, and every other thing regarding your database workload? So that is the essence. So this is how this one looks like, okay? So when you save it, remember you are taking it to a particular, now this is where you now do the replay. So for the replay now, okay, can you see what's the replay name? The source that is gotten from that source, okay? So you are going to do, so if you look at this carefully, okay, now look at the server name, which may be A. So you are going to do the replay on this one. So after that replay, then you now get to what, where the analysis will be done. So if you look at, let me see, I think we have a sample. Okay, so this is just going through the steps that I've actually mentioned earlier. You should define, you know, for the capture, the duration, the SQL instance, the path, the replay, you know, the controller and all those things, okay? But this is how that, good. So this is how it will look like, you know, it helps you to analyze it. Existing error 54, existing error maybe on the newer one, okay? New error. So if you look at this one 40, so it gives you, you know, just a clear picture. But one thing you should have at the back of your mind, like I said, that by December 2014, but that doesn't stop you from still trying to, you know, use it, okay? So that's why they even call it database experimentation assistant. So before you move, and if you look at the definition, they gave it here. They said the database experimentation assistant is an experimentation solution for SQL Server upgrade. It can help you to evaluate a target version of the SQL Server for a specific workload. So probably maybe as a customer, you want to upgrade, you know, to more recent, and you want to analyze all those different, you know, so the queries, the degradation, the workload comparison, this is what this will help you to get. Okay, so let's see. Okay, this one is still busy running, so let's still move on. Just a quick recap of what we are doing here. Okay, we are looking at some of the different tools we can use when we talk about migrating from on-prem database to the Azure either managed instance, SQL managed instance, or Azure SQL database. Okay, and one of the tools we talked about is the data migration assistant. Okay, and what we did, the first thing we actually did was we actually migrated the database directly. Okay, so if I bring up this Azure Data Studio side by side here, okay, so from here, this is the one on our on-prem, this is on my local system, this particular one, we migrated it, but for us to know that we did the normal migration, that's why we decided to name it Adventure Work LT Direct. All we did was just right click on this. Let me cancel this one out. Right click on this. We went to task. Okay. We went to deploy database to Microsoft SQL database. Okay, we've already created, so we just follow the prompt here. The only thing we did was to sign into. Okay, so click on next. So for here, you have to connect. So when you click on connect, you have to put the server name which has been created on Azure portal, and it will do its, do its thing. So why the other one, which is using the data migration assistant, this particular one, okay, the first thing we did was this one was to, carry out an assessment, for us to know if there's any compatibility issue, if there's any feature disparity issue and stuff like that. Okay, so if we look at this, I think this is done. We got one error. So out of 2, 3, 2, I think it is done. So let's say migrate data. Okay, so now these are the different tables. So if you feel you want to exclude anyone, let's see, maybe, okay. Let's see. Maybe before the end of the class, it will finish. So I'll just click on start data migration. I actually wanted to change the name, but no worries. Remember, we used the 2017. This is the one we use. And if we'll come to the platform here, where's our server? If we come to this as server, under this our database. Okay, this was the one we actually migrated directly. Okay, so we choose this database. So if we look at this database now, you can even look at it from our Azure Data Studio. This one. Okay, I think he's even bringing them in, because if you remember, we have nothing here before. So it's already, let's see. On our 20 minutes. So let's just wait. In progress, 71 in progress, 0 successful. So let's just see. So let's let it do its thing. So we'll move on. Okay. So we've talked about this. So now there's also, I've actually talked about this, but we'll go deep into this. Now we have what is known as the Azure Database Migration Service. Okay. Now we've seen this one, this data migration assistant. We've seen this one, database experimental assistant. We've also seen the SQL Server Migration Assistant, which is the one we did directly from our SSMS, okay? Now, what about MongoDB, SQL Server, Oracle, Data, DB2, MySQL, Postgres SQL? If you have this kind of database, how do you go about, how do you go about doing this migration? Okay, so for such one, you use what they call the Azure Database Migration Service, and this one, the way it works is a little bit different. So depending on the fact that if you have a huge workload, let me use that, this, okay, let me remove this one. Now this one, this is also another one. I talked about Azure Migrate, but this one is not just limited to database. If you have databases, you have servers, you have applications that make use of database, you can also use this particular one. So you can just, if you want to do database alone, so you can do this one. But This one to also involve some certain, you have to create a project, you know, and stuff like that. But let's just look at the Azure migration, database migration. Yeah, this is it. So let's create one. Of course, I told us that this one, you need to have some resources on-prem, but we'll just, so for this one, what is your source from your SQL server? It could also be from any of these different, remember, so if you look at our slide, that's telling you have different functionality, you know, all these ones. But remember that this one, they have kind of limited, even if you look at that, this one, you know, it was more like 2 options from your SQL server and from your AWS RDMS SQL server. If you remember when we came to this place, let's see. Can you see? It's actually complete. It's completed. And if you look at it, remember that it was saying 71 in progress, now 0 in progress, 71. So if we come to, even we can check it from, let's come here. Okay, this is it. Where's my query editor? So you have different ways. Let's see. Let's log in. We've actually confirmed this one, even from Azure Data Studio. We've seen it. But let's try something once more. Let's see. I don't know why. So if you come to this table, okay, this is it. But let me just try the SSMS once more and let's see. Yeah, you can X out of this one. Let's see. Let me connect to this. Connect, okay. Let me just remove this one. SQL authentication, admin user. If it should give me that error, I'll just move on with my. Let me do this. Connect. I've actually added the. So let's see.
So this version, is it 2014?
2019.
Okay. Okay, this one has connected though.
Yeah, so I wonder, but we didn't do anything different from the first thing.
Yeah,
so that it was giving us issue.
my own, yeah, my own is still giving me that issue.
Okay.
I'll try it again.
So if you look at, so all I'm just trying to do is, okay, now the database, just to confirm that, okay, regardless of whether you are using Azure Data Studio, you are using SSMS, we have the whole stuff here, which is where we migrated it to. Okay, so that's just what we have. So okay, good. So let's go back to this. Let's go back to this, which is the, okay. So now, okay, let's see. Since that one is complete, let me just quickly, I want to quickly show us something. If we come back here under this migration, this is the limitation of this data migration assistant. Remember that what are the source from SQL Server? What's the target? Can you see it? This is it. Okay. Now, okay, no, let's even do assessment. Okay. So for the assessment, can you see is only for SQL Server and also even from AWS RDMS for SQL Server. Okay. So when you talk about the migration, look at it. You can only migrate from SQL Server to either an Azure SQL database managed instance, SQL Server on Azure Virtual Machine, or SQL, on-prem. Okay, so this particular one does not cater for other types of relational database. So that is where this particular your Azure database migration service comes into play. So if you look at the different sources, it's cater for your AWS RDS for SQL Server from on-prem. Talk about AWS Postgres, normal Postgres on-prem, MySQL, MongoDB. So you can see that this one has a wider range, you know, of different RDMS databases that it support. And when you are talking about the target, of course, you are coming to Azure. That's the essence of this migration. So these are the different ones you have. Remember, we said this is IaaS, this is PaaS, this is PaaS. So you are bringing it from any of this particular database. You want them to come to this particular one. Okay, so you go with this one. So for the database migration service, of course, this is the process you want to use. Then you click, okay, yeah, let's say from this to this. Okay, now, like I said, this is actually more suitable for a large or a heavy workload, and there are different configuration, and that is where we'll get to see this one. So let me say resource group. Let me pick this one. Let me use East US. Let me just say Poshem. Hope it will not flag. The capital letter. There's something. Okay. I know. Okay, how about now? Okay, let's create. I remember we talked about ARM templates, so you can also download this and use it for subsequent whatever you want to do. I think we can close out on this. This one has been achieved, but let me just quickly show us one other thing for the assessment. Let me do this test too. Just quickly want to show something. Okay, so remember we saved one, so we can load that. This one we are seeing is the first one we did. Okay, so this is the one I just created now. So this particular one, I think I have one. See, okay, good. This one is different from what. So I just want to show you. So even if you have done any assessment and you want to you've made changes to the database and you still want to do the assessment, so you can, open this one now, then ask it to open it. So for this one, so now you can also, just like what I told you, you can load this one, but let's just take it one step after the other. So this one is still coming up. We've created one particular one. So let's see. Now, so how do you want to new migration, monitor migration? You want to view. So let's say we want to start a new migration. Okay, so like I told you, this one is actually not, I won't use the word straightforward like the other one, but there are some certain things you need to put in place. And most times, of course, most of those things could be, from your on-prem environment. We are moving from this to this. So where is the backup? Let's say we have it, we don't have it here, but let's say we have it in our blob storage. Okay, then let's see, can we, okay, let's quickly, I don't know if we'll be able to do this, but let's see within the incoming. Okay, let's quickly create the blob storage. Okay, so just want to show us how it plays. We use that same resource group. Just a portion storage. Hold on. Blob storage. for redundancy. Okay, I think it's still loading. Oops. I think my network is acting up. Let's wait for it to come. Okay. I'll go through this again. This. I hope the network. Okay, let's see. Let's see question. I think it's still loading. This is getting interesting. Okay. Poshem storage. Like I said, we are not going to complete this, but I just want to quickly just show us how to. Okay, let's leave it. Primary service. I want it to be an Azure block storage. Let's just keep it locally redundant. We don't want the next. Okay. Let's click next. Yeah, okay. I think we can create this one. Let's go create. So the purpose of doing what we are doing is we want to just upload. I think I have some if I come to this place, is it inside this? Okay, I have some one we can just upload this quickly within the, so that is just to show that, okay, our backup file storage location. So that's the essence of why we are creating this. Okay, great. Just want to show us how it works. But for, okay, I think still being provisioned. Okay, there's a question. Okay. Okay, I think there's a chat by Mr. Paul. So let's move on. So these are some of the prerequisites for your Azure Data Migration Service. Okay. This TCP/IP protocol is enabled in your SQL Server. Of course, you have to configure the firewall for access. And if you are using a firewall appliance, maybe a firewall or whatsoever, you have to, add that firewall so that in front of your database, just that definitely it will be able to be accessed. It's accessible, and all these ports are needed. They must be open for the database migration service, for the database migration service to be able to connect with the database itself. So these are some of the requirements that is needed. So let's just quickly see. So I think this is basically what we are on. Okay, this has been. But just remember that some of these things we would actually not put them in place. So let me just create a container, storage type, container, or a blob. Let me create one. I will just call it backup. Yeah, let me call it backup. Let me just give it this, create. So once it is created, I want to bring up this. Okay, let me go to this one. I want to upload. Okay, let's take this one. Drop it here. Why not okay? Okay, let me try it again. Okay, one file added. Okay, good. Upload. Maximize this one back. Okay, uploading it. So let's come back to this one. So we said blob storage, migration. Okay, let's use offline. Okay, we've selected. I hope everything is green here. Still uploading. Where's my resource group? Is not bringing up. Yeah, this is it. Okay, let me do something. Is this one? Okay, this one is good to go. Let me quickly do something. If I do this, I want to know if I created it in a different region because it is supposed to see the existing resource group. Azure database migration service. This is this US now. This is this US. I'm not using target, no, not a managed instance. So why are you giving me this one? Let me go back. This is what I choose. So why are you giving me? Okay, let's try and see if we can. SQL server, yeah, to this blog. Okay, let's use online mode. Let's click on stats. Okay, let's go back. I think we didn't read the. Let's go through this. Migration, before you start, check this. Have a valid this. I've completed the assessment. Provision, yeah. Okay, manage. That means this is only, but for year we choose this. Oh no. Aha. Oh, so that's my bad. Let's configure the runtime. This scenario is currently disabled and requires self-hosted integration. So for this one, now when you said self-hosted, it has to be on your on-prem, okay, whereby you download and install this. So we cannot be able to proceed with this particular one. So I think give or take, we'll just do this. Okay, but let me give room for questions so far, but I think I'll just do a quick recap. So if you look at the requirements, there are some certain things we need to do there. That has to do with the setting up on the on-prem. So the only one we can do is maybe use it for an SQL server managed instance. And I can tell that will take maybe 4 to 6 hours before we can deploy it. But let me just give room for any question before. But that's just the interface of the Azure data migration service, how it looks like and set it up. So what you are seeing here is, in case for us, we didn't have any issue. So that's why we didn't have to do this resource provider. But probably maybe when you are trying to deploy it and you are getting an issue, okay, you can always go to under your subscription and register this particular service. Okay. So, but for us, we actually didn't encounter any kind of issue regarding that. Okay. So now the other one is also Azure Migrate, which I've actually shown us. Okay. So Azure Migrate actually, it gives you, like I said, is also another platform or service which you can use for migration of different kind of services. It goes beyond just database, like we saw it and I show us a couple of pictures when you talk about the data box. You know, those are some of the, you talk about, you want to migrate your web app, you want to migrate maybe a web app that has database, everything interconnected. So you can also use that. Now, if you look at this, they said, don't be confused with Azure Data Migration Service. They are different things. So for your Azure Migrate, you can, use it to migrate both Azure SQL virtual machines. You can also use it for assessment, and you can also use it for migration. And remember when we're using the DMA, that's the Data Migration Assistant, the assessment that you've carried out, you can always migrate it to Azure. So let's see if I can do that. Okay, but before that, you have to create create a project. So if you come here, which I'm not going to do, okay. I thought I've opened down Azure Migrates. So the first thing you need to do here is, if you look at the Discover, Access and Migrate database. So what do you want to do? Okay, so getting started, what do you want to do? So if you do this one, let's say this is what you want to do. The first thing is you have to create a project. Okay, since you don't have one, you have to, that's the first thing you need to do, even if it is your database. So I wonder why this is being grayed out. There's no new project here. Okay, let's see. Where is overview? Okay, let me see something. We actually didn't create a project. Let me open this and see where it says migrate to, because we're supposed to get a tab that will show us to create assessment. Let me load assessment. Let me open this one. Let me load another one. If I maximize this one. Okay, let me say this one. Okay, it is when you are doing it, so it doesn't give you that. Okay, let's do open. Okay, so upload to, let's see, maybe to Azure environment, Azure. Let's see, because we are supposed to create a project, so I wonder why it's not giving me that. This. Let me start. Okay, let's see. Mm, let me impute the I'm trying to get the where that one come up. Okay. Okay, let's confirm. Let's pick the subscription. Now it's asking for that project. There are no Azure project available. Okay, let's see. You know, that was not giving us opportunity to create. That's why we decided to come through this route. It should sign me in automatically. It's still doing the same thing. Still taking us to the same. Okay, let's do database. This is grayed out. I don't want to believe it's based on maybe the, okay, let's just confirm. Azure Migrate. Is Azure Migrate available? Available for free subscription. So let's see what that will give us. It's even free for. So why is it not? Okay, but we'll not overthink it. So I'll look into that. But definitely when you click on any of this, even when you come here, okay, let's try for this. Even this is also grayed out. Supposed to have, let's try for a web app. Can do this projects. Let us double show. There's a property, not even projects. No worries. We'll confirm that. So we've talked about this. So let me give room for question. Let me give room for question. So any questions so far? Any questions so far? Who is scribbling on my screen? Annotation.
Sorry. Sorry. I didn't know
Okay.
when I didn't know I was trying to unmute. I didn't know when I was now tampering your screen.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Okay, no question for me.
Okay.
So, yeah, no question.
Okay. So basically, this particular link I'm about to take us to, it's, you know, is a kind of will I call it, it's more like what's the right word? What's the right word? Apart from maybe a step-by-step guidance, it's more like what is the best tool? How are you supposed to go about it when you are migrating from this particular kind of database to this? So if you look at this now, if you are moving from SQL Server to SQL Server. That means you're upgrading probably from 2017 to 2019 or 2012 to a higher version. Okay, which one is the best tools and the requirements you are supposed to move to. If you are going from Oracle to Azure database for this, so this particular link, gives you. So if you look at this, you want to upgrade SQL Server to the latest version. So it will tell you. Now, if you look at this, that for you to do this, data migration assistant is the best bet. And before you do that, first use your database experimentation assistance, which we have talked about, and the different, best practices. Yes, that's the word I was actually looking for. So it gives you that guide and how you can go about it. And if you look at all this you are seeing in the DMA, these are things we have actually, done, and if you look at, this is the database migration, database experimentation assistant. So it also gives you a step-by-step guide on how to go about that. So this is one particular, when you want to do any form of migration, this is the best site you need to go to so that it guides you on what to do, how to go about it, and the best tool for that job. Okay, so just before if I come back to this, let's look at the fact that let's say you want to move from this to this. Remember, we said that the best one for this one was actually Azure database migration service. So let's see what they have to say, because that one have. So if you come here now, pre-migration. Okay, let's look at this one itself, the data migration. So these are some of what you need to do. So basically, this should be the best bet. Just visit that particular link for you to be able to have a better understanding of what we are talking about. Okay, and you can also migrate using the backpack. Okay, and if you want to do that, I think this is kind of straightforward. There's actually this code is something you can use. But even if you don't want to do that, okay, I think I have a sample. Let's see if we can even close out with that. Let's see if we can close out with that. Let me just confirm. I think I have a backpack here. Okay, we have an adventure backpack. We even have this one. I think we have one. Oops, my bad. I think I've actually. Let's see. I think I've cleared out all those stores. Let's see. Let me refresh, because I know I have just so that. Oops. Okay. So my bad. But basically, I've cleared out all those. These are still here. Let's see. Okay. It cannot. So maybe it's just taking a while, because I know they're all on that one resource group and everything has been taken care of. Okay, good. So basically what we are saying is that you can still also migrate using your backpack. Okay, so from your server, you click on import the database, and you definitely choose, and it's actually better if it is actually saved within maybe one of these what I call it storage account and stuff like that. So it is easier for you to import it from such location. And you can also migrate when you are using your transactional replica and all these things. They must actually be, saved, within the Azure storage blob or container. So just like what we have looked at, this is just a quick one regarding the Azure SQL managed instance. Definitely, when you're talking about migrating, it's almost similar to what we have looked at, the Azure SQL database, because they both fall under that same category. But if you recall that there are some things you also need to put into consideration, and one of such is that when you are migrating, especially when you talk about SQL Server, you want to migrate it to Azure SQL managed instance. what we are seeing are some of the major benefits in terms of there's this backward compatibility. Of course, you have the security feature. And remember, we talked about the fact that your PaaS platform in terms of your SQL managed instance and even the Azure SQL databases, they are always evergreen. So in terms of you don't need to patch them yourself, you don't need to do any form of upgrade. You are always sure of the fact that you are using the updated version of any of those things, and it is being done, by Microsoft. So you don't have to take anything. So in terms of network isolation, you can also take that. In terms of lift and shift, even with the Azure Migrate, you can easily do that. Instant failover group, you can all put all those things in place and ensure that everything is what is good to go. So just to recap what we've looked at, remember we've talked about the different tools, and even for your SQL, you want to migrate it to Azure SQL Managed Instance, you discover that they are still the same thing, the same tools, the Azure Database Migration Service, the Data Migration Assistant, and the Database Experimentation Assistant. And remember that this one is for you to get a better understanding of how your workload, will perform in terms of, query, in terms of, the application and every other thing. So this gives you an in-depth understanding on how they will definitely, work. Okay. So when you talk about you are in terms of your SQL managed instance compatibility, okay, they have some extra benefit or features that makes Azure SQL managed instance most appropriate for organizations that are actually using SQL instances on-prem. In terms of, you talk about query databases or cross database query, talk about cross database transaction, linked server, all these features, even service broker, all these things, you can do them with your SQL managed instance. But one thing you should always remember when we're trying to provision this in one of our previous classes, the list we got was 1,000 and, I cannot remember, I think $1,200, per month. So you should know that this is quite on the high side. And if you can achieve this using migrating your database to Azure SQL database, why don't you go for it? But depending on what has been on existence on-prem, okay, and you want to replicate it, or you just want to do a lift and shift, the managed instance might be your best bet, okay? So you and the organization have to decide which one is the one that is actually, good for you. And when you talk about also migrating backup and restoring from URL, we'll also take a look at this, when you have within your storage accounts, you have your database or your backup, and you want to, restore them. We'll also look at this in subsequent class. So I think this is, let me see, is there any other thing? Even to all these ones, we'll still talk about it when we get to, we're still going to talk about security part. So we'll talk about this one. So I will not want to dive into this at this particular point. Okay. And for your connectivity option with your on-prem server, there are different ways you can connect. You can do what they do, point to site. These are some of the things we've touched base on while we're doing the AZ-104. You have what they call the point to site, you have what they call the site to site, and you have what they call the express route. So when you talk about point to site, it's just like a secure connection from one particular machine. Okay, that's why if you look at it, he said you are creating a secure connection from your virtual network from an individual client machine. So point to point. So that means it is just one particular machine that is talking to maybe that your SQL managed instance. When you talk about site to site, that means you are creating a network on your on-prem that will be talking to all the resources within another virtual network within Azure environment. But when you talk about express route, this is more like a dedicated route that is created, connection from your on-prem. And this is actually done by ISP service provider. The organization have to actually reach out to them. So if you just do this, I think currently express routes, if I do express route, no router. So it's a dedicated kind of, So if you look at it, said it's a Microsoft Azure service that allow you to create a private connection between your on-prem infrastructure and Microsoft cloud services. And like I said, you cannot do this. You have to reach out to your service provider. They'll give you that dedicated, connection, across their own thing and connect you with the Microsoft environment, or services. So I think this is actually a good point for us to call it a day. So let me give room for any question, any feedback. So tomorrow we'll be starting with module 3. So any question?
No questions, sir.
Okay, any feedback, any contribution?
No, none. So it's quite understandable.
Okay.
Everything was clear.
So thank you for being a part of this class, and for those of you that are actually streaming or joining us online. Okay, you can also comment, the comment section, leave your question, and you can be rest assured that we'll get back to you. So once again, thank you very much for being a part of this class. So tomorrow, same time, we'll get to see and meet. And so take good care of yourself. And from my
Okay.
friend, bye.
Thank you. Have a good one. Bye.
Same to you.